location is right next to the Trop.
Of course. I live right there.
Right there used to be the headquarters of Webb City, the world's most unusual drugstore. I had one student absolutely blow my mind. They were all circles, and within, we'll say, less than 5 seconds, she drew what looked like a squiggly line from each of them, 30 balloons.
Can AI duplicate the same creativity as the human consciousness?
We are St. Pete, incredible beaches. We're not New York City. We're not San Francisco. We're not London. We're not Paris. One concept within innovation and entrepreneurship and creativity is serendipity.
Hello, all you beautiful people. Welcome back to Talkin St. Pete. I am your host, Ryan Bogdan. Before I get into today's amazing guest, I want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Bogdan Homes at Keller Williams St. Pete. So if you know anyone looking to buy, sell, or invest here in the greater Tampa Bay area, please find our contact information in the description below, as we're here to help you and your family. And now on to my awesome guest. I'm super excited to dive into all the things this guy's doing. I got Steve Diasio, founder and creator of the School of Creativity and Innovation. Steve, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ryan.
I'm excited. Did I do a good job?
Excellent.
All right, cool. So we were just talking before the show how you say it's so important for there to be a voice of St. Pete because of all the great things that St. Pete is doing and how it's changing the world. So before we get into all that, because that's exciting, give us just like high level, little snapshot, who you are and how you're here and how you created this School of Innovation.
It's a pleasure being here. The School of Creativity and Innovation was formed from the consistent feedback that I've been receiving from those executives and leaders and students that I train, constantly asking for more tools, frameworks to help them think differently, help their organizations and teams be more productive, high-performing teams, and to think differently. We're constantly being asked to do more with less, to drive top-line revenue, to reduce costs, to be more efficient and be better stewards of resources. However, oftentimes we haven't been trained or educated with the most recent tools or evolving best practices of what leading companies do. So I've packaged a series of trainings that allow these executives to level up with modern-day tools and to take these next steps in leveling up their own professional skills and their organizational capacities.
Okay, so tell me, let's before, how did we get there? What's a little bit about your background? Why is the passion of innovation? Before we get into all that, tell me about Steve. How'd you get to St. Pete?
I went through several different paths. Having grown up in Chicago, I had the opportunity to work at the Chicago Board of Trade, and anyone knows about trading or the financial markets, and I know that your audience is very savvy in these contexts. I got to work on the Board of Trade and the floor and the pits. And what was happening was a big transition in technological change, going from pit trading to computer trading, but computers embedded within the Board of Trade. Now, obviously, we can trade from home and fast and with speed, but
quickly,
but that wasn't the case back then.
Right.
So I was doing a lot of risk management for them. That process, or we'll say that theme of technological change and getting exposure to that allowed me to work for a large company called Aon.
Okay.
Which was a big risk management firm, has different insurance arms and insurance brokerage, and we were going through a different technological change, and that was post my MBA, post London experience, where I was able to move this organization from traditional, say, paper processes, if we can imagine or remember paper process, the perforated computer paper.
Yeah.
The agents had to walk around to find premiums. We streamlined this through, we'll say, an early AI or decision and rule-based system, a front-end data collection through applications and floppy disks to streamline the underwriting process. So I was always at this technological change of transformation and innovation happening, but the leaders, managers of these firms didn't know how best to execute organizational change, didn't know the best practices. So that always was kind of the groundwork for my research, doing a PhD at Asade Business School in Barcelona, Spain, top 15 business school in the world. There I got to work with IBM in their Innovation Jam platform. Siemens, Nokia, that led to working at USF, extending my research beyond innovation jams to the jam band theory of innovation. And finally, because of those trainings and that knowledge to compartmentalize both into online and immersive trainings, but in person as well, the School of Creativity and Innovation was born to scale to reach a wider audience of professionals outside of the Tampa Bay area, because they're in need of it and they're asking for it and they're hungry.
Love that. Okay, so what's the connection to USF? Is that what brought you to St. Pete? Yeah.
Absolutely. I finished a PhD during the financial crisis, and as you know, things were tough in the real estate in Florida and all around the world. And being in Barcelona, to give you a statistic, I had finished my government grant, and the official statistic was 30% unemployment.
Wow. That's a lot.
So when you get a good job offer in a beautiful city like St. Pete in the Tampa Bay area, you feel like you've been struck by genius, lightning, God, and pointing you in the direction. So then I landed here, and we already know how beautiful it is.
Yeah, you got extremely lucky.
Exactly. A lot of other friends landed other places, not as beautiful, we'll say.
Yeah.
And when I landed on the campus of USF St. Pete, while I teach at all the campuses and online, the campus has a natural beauty to it, being on the water. And then, of course, my first time ever being in St. Pete was when the Dali Museum was on the St. Pete campus.
Oh.
And when I walked through there, and I remember vividly because it was with my grandmother and my father and my uncle and my mother, and having been in Spain and working with different companies within Barcelona, if it's the Dali Museums there, the Chocolatiers, FC Barcelona, I walked into that museum, and what I saw was the different paradigms of innovation that I teach and work with in academic setting, but transposed in a curation in using Dali. And this was a metaphor that I started applying in surrealism to my work to help students take this complex topic of innovation and bring it down to a relatable, immersive experience. So I have a course called Innovation in Dali, and this was kind of the beginning of building that Rolodex and immersive experiences, helping individuals and organizations level up through creative thinking, creative ability. So that's a little short.
Well, how
short story.
cool that you had spent time in Spain. And is it Figaro? Where was Dali from?
Figueres.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been there. Wonderful.
You've been there?
Yeah, of course.
I want to go because so much inspiration of his artwork comes from those cliffs there, and it's quite beautiful.
I think you would get this. So here in St. Pete and the Tampa Bay area, probably all the way down to Sarasota, there's an energy tied to the water, tied to the sun, tied to the beach. And the feelings and emotions and energy that we connect to it. Those same energetic and principles and elements are there, and you can start to see yourself there through the lens of Dali. So I encourage you to go. And
it's on my list of places to go because I'm a huge Dali fan. Huge Dali. I had I have like it's essentially a printout of one of his paintings prior to even knowing that I was going to move to St. Pete, hanging in my apartment in Philadelphia, and so moved to St. Pete and still not knowing that there's a Dali museum here, and then find that out, and I'm like, you're kidding! Like, this is one of my favorite artists, and I've been to museums so many times, so I'm really intrigued. Let's just go there. So what does it mean? You say innovation in Dali. Let's give me like some specifics. How does that show up in coursework, and how did you connect the two?
Absolutely. These are oftentimes gray words in our society. We may use them interchangeably: creativity, innovation,
right. No, I want to get deeper than that. Yeah.
And my goal was to demystify for the audiences that I work with. And one of the practical elements is I've authored a book called Evaluating Your Creativity Through Assessments and Exercises. And there are 4 main pillars that students work through: the creative self, the creative environment, the creative process, and creative products and services. And this is both an immersive experience because as they go through the books, they use QR codes and other emerging technologies to listen to videos, watch videos, supporting and reading. And now we're moving away from this like traditional textbook or traditional canvas page, and it's narrative based, so they see themselves as the hero, and the transformation that they go through I see in their reflections, in their work. They start seeing themselves bigger and more capable and reconnecting with their creative self and innovative self far more than they saw themselves before.
So is this removing limiting beliefs? Is this, because you're saying reconnecting with creative self. So I'm just trying to get like, what does that mean? And so what is this coursework doing? Is it because if we get so caught up in the mundane of life, our creativity gets shrunk, right? If we don't have space, we need space to be creative. And so if we're so worried about the next task, it doesn't allow for that. So is this coursework teaching people how to be creative by creating space and opening their mind? Is that what you're relating?
I would suggest on these four main pillars, through these exercises, they are able to identify areas that they're strong in that can help build and support their creative ability and creative thinking processes, such as the creative self. So, for instance, not everyone views themselves as creative, but I would argue creativity is central to what it means to be human. We would still be writing on the cave wall. We would be using basic tools, using rocks to break things. So, and it's so important that even in a lot of our most prominent biblical text, in the first sentence or first paragraph, they're referencing the notion of creation. And of course, we know the history of creation tied to some of these biblical traditions. And then at the same time, how we've progressed as a society and humans. If we're not reconnecting, or that's not emphasis the value of what we have in societies, because across culture, we've been kind of educated out of that. And this is an idea of being able to reconnect on these four main pillars to identify and build that muscle like you would running a marathon, like you would go to the gym or get that yoga pose. If you're not practicing it, it atrophies. And if we believe this is an important skill set, we need to practice it. And these four areas are the dominant view within academic and science to work
So
on.
what are the four areas?
The creative self.
Yep.
The creative environment, so those around you. So I have them inspire of who are they like that's around their network and their support system, or who would they like to aspire to be? And then they start to see those qualities in themselves through reflections and these exercises. The creative process, there's a myth around that it just happens strike by lightning or the creative genius. It's a muscle, something you practice. These exercises are meant to be a form of practicing and building assets to help you practice your creative self, environment, process. And there's, different processes from different histories or paradigms, but we'll suggest that the one that we use goes through a common iteration, ideation, divergent and convergent thinking, some very common practical tools and ways of viewing problems, and then finally, creative products and services, both as inputs and outputs. And we start learning about the foundations. Diverse inputs equal diverse outputs. So for me, traveling is something that it helps inspire me and create those diverse inputs to allow me to continuously build that muscle for diverse outputs.
So in describing all that, you used a lot of word, but give me some tactical examples of how a student comes in, identifies a creative self. What is an environment? What's an actual process look like, or product and service? If you could just sum that up, like a real tactical example.
Some of the exercises might be, here are 30 exercises, create unique items, and you have 1 minute. And this is meant to test this idea of replicatability and or uniqueness, which are concepts embedded in the broader theory and frameworks of creativity. And that tends to show them these two concepts, what could be iterating on, baseball, basketball, softball, they're different items, but they're more or less in the same category. I had one student absolutely blow my mind. They were all circles, and within, we'll say less than 5 seconds, she drew what looked like a squiggly line from each of them, 30 balloons. While that was fast, they're replicating the same. Others have used multiple circles for images and faces, and we'll say a mosaic within those circles. So these are all different ways of looking at that exercise to make a different, we'll say, meaning through that exercise. And then once they see that there are different ways to be creative, now these are rabbit holes for them to practice different muscle refinement of your bicep or whatever.
It's fun sitting here speaking with you because I can tell your because creativity, and I'm going to tie this to it's so abstract, right? This concept, because as you're describing this, like I'm like 30 balloons. What does that mean? But then it took them, like I got it, right? Because you're talking about the seed of creation and finding that, and so it's I'm just thinking about those listening of like, are they with us and following, because you're so in depth in your field, because you're going so to the core, and so to tie this even maybe to a more tactical example of something I've been contemplating recently when it comes to creativity is, can AI duplicate the same creativity as the human consciousness? And what deciphers the difference? Because what is original? Have you thought about this?
The AI conversation is still in early developments. I have considered this in many aspects and had conversations. I think we'll find out eventually that the definition of creativity may become even more nuanced, or we may have to be creative about how we see creativity, and it will force us to dive deeper to help expand our creativity. So, one simple way would be, because of some of the values that we hold in our society, maybe we suggest creativity is deeply tied to the human experience, and therefore what AI might do may not meet that definition, but it may level up and allow us to scale in areas that we may not have that deep skill set. So maybe because of we live in a fishbowl, we live in this subjective experience as individuals, as humans, going in this world and the stimuli, and we can't always be outside of that. We can try our best to bend that glass, to think horizontally, to think laterally. But these exercises allow you to remind you to ideate, to think of more solutions before you pick one, because then you can arbitrage solutions. And now we're starting to speak languages related to business and economics and other industries. And when you have more options, you now are creating more value with the solution that you choose, because you're able to refine it, you're able to understand the risks, you're able to more efficiently identify resources or those you need to collaborate to move those ideas forward. So I think that would go for every problem.
Yeah, so I have my degrees in entrepreneurship and innovation management, so it ties right in with your innovation thinking. And a thing that we're definitely we're taught is, let's come up with all the possible solutions, good, bad, or ugly, and then because you never know what idea could come from an original thought, right? And so it's just interesting now, and I don't know how much you're using, but just to think with AI, to be innovative and creative, to sit there and say, help me come up with 10 ideas of all these ways. Okay, now think of 10 different ways of it could go wrong, whatever, right? Or but from that, the seeds that come out of that, and then tie into human experience, and that could pop out a new seed of an idea that led from thinking with this technology. And so how much of that are you seeing now? And that's happening so fast in term of like innovative thinking in a business practice. A simple solution of, give me 10 social media ideas. Now write the script for this. Now give me a caption that I can write for it. Like, it's eliminating some of the creativity from the human, but sometimes even better because of the data that it has to know that it works in a business sense. I don't know if I explained that well.
No, I got you. I see it as a partner, as a way to flush out ideas. I don't know if it's necessarily, taking ideas that the human didn't have or expanding on what they could do if they had more time.
Well, that's time, though.
Yeah.
Time. It's all about time.
Yeah.
I mean, I can have AI write me an entire movie script within minutes.
Absolutely. There might be a lot of refinement that has to happen after.
Sure, but the amount of time is shrunk by days,
Yeah,
weeks.
it's creating more efficiencies and allowing them to scale. I don't know if there's any best practices, but certainly students are engaging through that type of consulting or collaboration with. I love using the voice activation of ChatGPT and having them repeat preparations for different meetings, for ideas while you're doing multiple, driving or whatever. And so certainly these are helping you level or scale some of the skills that an individual have, or to think and challenge some of those underlying assumptions, which are deeply embedded in this entrepreneurship and innovation and creativity.
It's just fascinating because even when I was like, to have this tool now to think creatively as a resource, right? It's just it's no different than sitting now in a room with 5-10 people, more brains are better than one, and to come up with creative solutions because it can think of things that you didn't, because you can only think based off the experiences that you have. Why travel creates new creativity? Because you're experiencing all new things, which is creating new neural connections in the mind to allow for new creative thought to happen. And now you have this tool that is thousands of brains and experiences coming back and helping your one brain come up with creativity.
It's definitely exciting. And I think within organizations, at least from the leadership and executives that I've talked to, they're having challenges with adopting AI. One, policies, IP, proprietary data. So what might be happening in the student education space might be more advanced than some of the organizations just because of the limitations that they find themselves.
I'm curious because you being in the college, like education world, and even with your school, I think now, and I just saw this the other day, of that information is worthless. Meaning, as an attorney, you spend all this time and energy to go get a law degree, when I can upload now a contract to a chat and it can analyze it probably better than an attorney, right? Or it's on the way to. So I really think the power in knowledge now is being able to ask questions. And so I'm very, very interested in how we prompt our questions, because now we know we have this thing, quote unquote, all knowing or soon to be. But if you don't know the questions to ask, you can't extract the information, right? Like if I don't know what to ask you, I can't get out of what's in your mind. We could end up talking about something that's meaningless. Right. And the same thing is with this tool. So this is something I contemplate a lot on, Steve, because I'm more of a philosophical thinker on all this.
I can tell. I don't know if information is useless.
It's meaning that why pay the amount of time? I don't need to know unless I need to know.
I see where you're going. If I can push.
Yeah, no, push. This is good.
I do feel, and I think there's some evidence for this notion of knowledge being able to be transferred, and also if we connect it to creativity, that knowledge helps you in other areas and facets of your life or work or business or personal or professional. So having that allows you to think outside of that fishbowl. And while you might say you don't have that knowledge and you just ask or leverage AI in a way, you're still kind of at a lower trajectory than without that knowledge or without that information.
So I think the knowledge comes because, to your point, that the more knowledge I have, the better question I can ask.
The idea is managing, we'll say, the absence of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And hopefully having more knowledge allows you to manage the absence of knowledge. I'm not sure if that's accurate. That's a big strategy question as well.
No, it is. It's interesting right now in this time of like, if I have this thing in my pocket now that is 9/10 as good as the best experts in all the fields, and I just have to ask it the right question to get what I need.
We might get there. I'm still hesitant to suggest they have all the deep knowledge in medicine and some other fields.
It's going to happen quick. It's going to happen quick. It's happening so fast. A year ago, many people didn't even know what ChatGPT was. I was at the gas pump a couple weeks ago, and it was telling me how chat was integrated with some TripAdvisor thing on a little ad that's as I'm pumping gas. Like, the quickness of this is ridiculous, I could talk on AI for hours. I am curious because you were. I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. We can come back to that if you want, because you have some great knowledge on St. Pete, and you mentioned how St. Pete's, doing things are happening here that are changing the world. What are some of those things, and how did you find out about them? And yeah,
Absolutely. Since I'm a researcher of innovation, particularly in the open innovation paradigm, one thing that really struck me and kind of grounds me here is the long history of innovation, or changing the world type of innovation, trajectory of the world innovation that has happened here in St. Pete that we don't talk about enough. Such as Wikipedia being founded here. That democratized knowledge and access to truth. We no longer need a single book to tell us what truth is. If it's the Encyclopedia Britannica or other Bibles or biblical books. Of course, we are familiar with the first commercial air flight. That allows us to consider what we have as globalization today, the idea of trade.
Can we not buzz over that one? Can we go
please.
into the first commercial flight? Because I think that is fascinating, and I haven't talked about that on the show yet.
Absolutely, let's talk.
So what happened? It was the mayor of St. Pete, right? Or
there was an investor who, as you know, in the Tampa Bay area, there was a lot of wealthy railroad barons, and their value prop was obviously transporting cargo and building Tampa and St. Pete as a destination for wellness, etc. They took that and went lateral and said, what happens if we move people like we do cargo? And then this is the idea of a commercial venture for commercial air flight. And the mayor of St. Pete was the first paying customer, and that flew from Tony Janis as the pilot, and the structure, the sculpting structure at the pier replicates that plane and that memorial for that first commercial air flight.
So the flight flew from St. Pete across the bay
Yeah.
to Tampa Bay. Short, quick little flight, but was the first commercial flight.
Yeah.
In the world that we know of.
Prior to that, it took roughly 6 hours by train before we built that bridge.
Yeah.
Or 8 hours driving all the way up around, the bay and over. And then we have the commercial air flight. So that was roughly 30 minutes. So comparing the 6 hours and 8 hours, our hour and a half commute over the bridge and dragons don't seem so bad. But that's one way at revolution. So think of it, the whole industry, how many jobs it employs, all the side businesses, all the economic growth, all the globalization, the products that we have, while not all of them are shipped through planes, to travel. We travel. We grow our hearts and our minds and how we see the world, and we realize that other people who might look differently are actually much more similar than we suggest, or that our differences are relatively small. And that grows empathy, and we enjoy products from Italy. We enjoy products from wherever, and we travel, and we change. The meaning of our own life change because of that. Another example would be Wikipedia. Another example would be, do you know where the U-Haul location is, right next to the Trop?
Of course. I live right there.
Right there used to be the headquarters of Webb City, the world's most unusual drugstore. Back between the 20s and 50s.
I remember seeing this in the history of St. Pete Museum.
Yeah. They'd had several ways of innovating. One, I would argue they were a precursor to Amazon. First of all, precursor to department stores, which are on the decline. But they had lingerie, they had clothing, they had canned goods, they had chickens, they had eggs, they had a range of products where before you had to go to the meat market, to the fish market, to the vegetable. And
they were ahead of Sam Walton.
Yeah. And they had saying, stack them high and sell them cheap. I would say that's not so different than what Amazon does right now. And he had, we'll say, strategies and tactics that I would argue mirror what Amazon Prime does. So precursor. So what is Amazon Prime? Amazon Prime is more than just 2-day overnight delivery. You get access to TV and value and music and other benefits. But they know that those who own and pay that whatever 200 whatever dollar subscription a year spend more money at Amazon. What Doc Webb did, he had a similar approach. Granted, this was in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and a dollar bill was worth a lot more. And he suggests, come to my store and I'll sell you this dollar bill for 90 cents. If you come back tomorrow, I will buy it back for $1.10. And you might be like, why is he doing that? Because he knew that people would spend more money at the world's most usual drugstore. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it was just getting bodies in the door.
Another example, social innovation. At a time in our country's history, through certain Jim Crow laws, not everyone had access to jobs or equally. They were hiring people from the African American community here in St. Pete and helping them rise up through jobs at the world's most unusual drugstore, Doc Webb City.
That's cool. That's really cool. So, man,
I have one more example.
Go. So
you like the Dali.
Yeah.
Let me think about this. The museums here, including the Dali, are world class. We are St. Pete, incredible beaches. We're not New York City. We're not San Francisco. We're not London. We're not Paris. One concept within innovation and entrepreneurship and creativity is serendipity. And when the family who controlled the Dali masterpieces that are now in the Dali Museum made an open call to find a place that had a house or are willing to support and continue the work that Dali has done, a local individual answered that call and said St. Pete would be a great place. And the city of St. Pete and the mayor and leadership here said, let's make that proposal. So out of anywhere in the world, these great pieces of art and history could have been anywhere. But they ended up here through this notion of serendipity, because of the community rallying, because of this individual making an answer to that call.
Do we know when that happened? I forget. I don't know the date. I don't know.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't recall. But I'm just thinking of how
80s or 90s.
Yeah, that because it's St. Pete's such a artistic community, which makes it fun and unique, and that the arts are very, very important to creativity, and it draws a lot of attention here. And I think here now, even the draw of people that move here are on many entrepreneurs. Many entrepreneurs have moved here in the last 5 years. And even this show, that's all I do is I talk to business owners and entrepreneurs, and the community and you can say the incubation that happens here that allows people to foster these ideas in their mind and bring them to life and have people come support them and grow and become these small successful businesses, small relative to large corporations, but still very successful, and how that impacts and adds to the serendipity of the community here. It's profound. It's really, really cool.
Let me ask you, I agree. It's in our DNA. Those examples are long in history. And my question, is it the sand between your toes? Is it the humidity? Is it the salty air? What is it? Is it the people? Is it the scrappiness? I mean, we just got hit by 2 hurricanes. I didn't hear one Floridian complain, who's going to come to our rescue? They said, no, we're going to pull up our bootstraps. We're going to rebuild. If it's crazy or not, we're going to do it. This is our home. This is where we're connected and grounded. And the notion of creation has always been here. And I don't know if it's inspiration from the water, the beauty, the people, combination of that dynamics that are coming together. But it's in our DNA. Maybe it's in our beaches and the sand between our toes. I'm curious about your opinion.
I think there's multiple factors. I'm on the phone with my mother this morning, and I wake up and I was about to say it's a beautiful, and she goes, there's an ice storm happening here. She's in Pennsylvania. And I'm like, Mom, I was just standing on my balcony in my underwear. The sun is shining. It's fantastic. And then I think it's 270 some days of consecutive sun is the record that we have, here in St. Pete that happened. And then I think about Wendy Wesley, who was on the show, and I think it's 30 some miles, or if not more. I can't remember the stat. Let's go find the old video of that, of how much water access we have being here on this peninsula. And so I think it's, if I look at what draws people here, and this goes into human behavior, well, it's just watching it at scale, it is the weather. I think the weather has a huge factor. And the fact that back to serendipitous moments, the fact that Vinoy Park is protected and that no buildings can go there, and we have direct water access. That's really what Wendy was talking about, is the amount of direct water access that we have. Humans are already drawn to want to live towards water. We can go back in history and see all that, right? That's like anytime there's water, a river, that's where people congregate. And it's so having the bay and right there, and now having a park that's there and you can watch that sun come up. I mean, every morning, the amount of people that are out there enjoying that sunrise is quite remarkable. And so I do think the geographical location of where we're at is important. I think some things, as you mentioned, that have happened through history does that. This place of being where artists have been, because I've now heard, I'm not originally from here. However, I've heard countless stories of how parts of St. Pete were not the best, right? They weren't places where people wanted to be the way they are now. But I think because some people had a vision and they had the creativity and they were blessed with a place that is remarkable in terms of the weather, and it creates this sense of peace. Unlike New York, I think that we joke about this this Northeast hustle. I think that's just because people are freezing their asses off, right? like
to stay warm.
You literally need to move quick because you don't want to be outside for long, not most of the year. Where here, there is space for creativity because you don't have to move as fast, because you can be outside. You can get that natural sunlight, which probably plays into a lot of factors. So, I mean, that's a long-winded way. I think it's multifaceted. I don't think there's one answer to put it, but I do think the weather plays a part, and then the people that have been here. So you think of that, those people and generations that have been here experiencing that over and over and over again, and then that mentality, and then that pours over, and then people come here from a place that's cold, gloomy, and dark, and ice storms, and they get to hear. Now they get to express and almost thaw out to express themselves.
Unlock some creative potential that was literally frozen or stifled by some other type of environment.
Yeah, because we know sunlight and all those things are good for us. So if you're not getting that, it's just like, so for the fact that we have the record for the most consecutive days of sunshine, I think plays a huge factor.
Vitamin D, man.
Into all that.
Wellness.
It's just being outside. We're not meant to be inside as humans. I think I don't know. There's a lot of factors. But going back to, I think the Dali Museum has a huge factor in all the other art that happens here. It's like,
it was an anchor.
It's an anchor
that really inspired opportunity for visioning other aspects of the museum.
And I've been to that museum now 4 or 5 times, and every time I walk in there, I get inspired again.
Have you been into the American Museum of Arts and Crafts Museum?
I don't think so.
I recommend it. I'll be happy to give you a tour.
Okay.
And this ties to innovation as well.
Yeah.
So that museum focuses on a time period in American history that parallels like Art Nouveau and some other aspects in different parts of the world. But those artists, which ranged from all disciplines, glass, sculpture, furniture, wood, etc., they were in response to changing in society here in the U.S., roughly industrialization, the mass production, the standardization. And these artists were leading this conversation through their artwork, through their design, to say creation is tied to the American culture, tied to the human experience, tied to the resources of the Great West, the colors, the land, etc. And it was a rebuttal to industrialization, mechanization. And I find that amazing because it's showing another form of creativity, another form of innovation, another form of human ingenuity, and we have it here in St. Pete. And we're able to display it, and it's amazing.
How familiar are you with the Innovation District?
Very familiar.
Yeah, I wish I would have brought I have the book on my desk right now that just came out. Allison, oh man. I'm sorry, Allison, I'm forgetting your last name right now, but we just did a Keller Williams Young Professionals launch, and we had Allison there to talk.
She's great.
Yeah, to talk about the Innovative District and all the things that are happening there, and how cool is it to say that our city has an Innovation District?
Yeah, it's the voice for the city to highlight a lot of the unique,
Allison Barlow. Shout out Allison.
great resources that we have there in terms of federal government, regional, state governments in sustainability, in water and estuary, and different protections. And I think that also makes us unique. And in fact, that's why I was invited to London a few years ago to meet with the mayor of London, because a lot of the sustainability, climate, and challenges we're facing here, London is also facing. And we're learning that having these resources here help us be a competitive advantage and one of our, we'll say, tools that as a city and a region, we're able to help level and help this country innovate and be more productive in protecting these areas.
So from working with students, what are some examples of projects that some of your students are thinking about when it comes to innovation? Like some real examples.
The students I have, and that's one reason why I'm so connected to the community, the students are absolutely blowing my mind and super talented. They are recreating careers. They are recreating paths that no textbook could ever, or book or blog or whatever, could ever lay out as a path. I'll give you an example. I had a student, and I know many of the listeners might know her business. She goes by MC Swim. Megan. She was sitting in the back of my class. She was a quiet introvert. And I said, hey, Megan, what are you doing when you're not in class? She's like, I'm cutting fabric. I was like, tell me more. She goes, well, I grew up on St. Pete Beach, and I'm tired of being marketed women's bathing suits that are prohibitively expensive, that have the Miami Vice style, or California board shorts. That's not who St. Pete is. That's not the Gulf Coast. That's not the Sun Coast, Tampa Bay. So she decided to learn how to cut her own fabric, make reversible bikinis, quit her serving job, and that's what she does for a living. So she goes by MC Swim. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her in many of the channels. But this is a magical story of someone who took it upon themselves to create something that was uniquely to the region and filling a niche and a gap. Another great example, the girl gone green, Manuela Barón, was taking my classes online from Bali. You might be, the first notion is she serious? How is she learning? Well, this kind of goes to the immersive experiences that I provide, and remember the students that we're talking to. People are out in the world. People are doing things. We're not interested in being confined by some sort of classroom. We have to be out there testing the market, measuring, getting out. And she was there because she was focused on helping live a minimalistic and sustainable lifestyle for college students. And before that, she amassed a mass following on YouTube, poured that to Instagram, started commercializing that, then was named by the company Ariel. You might not know that name, but you know their brands. Abercrombie & Fitch, Hollister, Pac, Sun, I think. Role model for sustainability activism by Ariel. On Ola.com, you can see the video. She parlayed that into sustainability ambassador for Merrill Shoe Company. So think of like REI, but Merrill Shoe. This is not a career path any career services is going to tell you how to follow. She created her own. Plus, she's an artist, so she takes trash and makes these beautiful pieces of clothing and fashion to represent what we're, to symbolize what we're doing to the planet and to the earth and our beautiful waters, unfortunately. So that's another, Girl Gone Green. Another example, Sacred Snow. So tied to the arts, you can start seeing a pattern. The students are interested in the arts. And this one, super talented. Every piece of work was tied to sustainability. She grew up on the coast. Water was tied to her, but she also had a passion for music. She grew up, creating music. And during COVID, she launched her music career. Now she's known as Sacred Snow. Very talented, created her own music, videos, collaborating, lyrics. and got a record label, was DJing across the nation. Then something else happened. She's like, music was my passion, and if I'm doing it for work, I was starting to lose that passion.
We hear that narrative a lot.
So what does a good entrepreneur, innovator, creative do? That's her lead generator. And the adjacent business is Sacred Sessions, a one-day festival of wellness, sobriety, art, dance, music, health. And she puts that on regularly. She's on the 9th session. Amazing. Think of a miniature South by Southwest with St. Pete vibe, Tampa Bay area vibe, health, younger generation talking about sobriety in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's communities and people searching for support like that, and much needed in our society. And I see this through my students. So I couldn't be more happy and proud of these examples, and I have many more, creating movies.
One theme I found through that is that it's a lot of the ability for these students to do that was because they had a platform to jump off of, and how important, in an entrepreneurial, creative, innovation world, in having an audience to launch whatever your idea is and having that personal brand or story attached to is ever more important in today's world, right? You can, personal branding in general is a creative process of who do you want to be known as, right? Is creative. And then knowing that that platform then allows you to launch whatever that thing is that allows you to create a business and live a life and be in Bali while you're taking classes and doing this or whatever, right? Like that it's still a new thing that the accessibility to create a personal brand is at your fingertips, and we all can do it. We all have the device in our pocket right now. And I just think that message is, there's so many niches. They say the riches are in the niches. And the more specific you can become to a point of swimwear dedicated to the Tampa Bay area. And I think too many people are thinking at such scale that they get lost in the sea of sameness versus getting super narrow and specific. And then that creativity and then you can add to it. Is that a technique that's taught?
Finding your competitive advantage, what makes you unique and different, is a foundation within the innovation practices and entrepreneurship practices. Getting there might be a process, and those are where best practices that we teach.
It's fun sitting here thinking about this because I go, how am I betraying personal brand on the internet at the moment? And we can always do better, right? We can always do better. But that's a big part of this show because I'm so passionate about my underlying thing that happened from doing this show that I didn't realize is that I love finding the seed of where the creativity came from to start whatever venture was there. And so I always gear my questions towards that curiosity because I'm just so interested in the entrepreneurial journey of a start and being in this place that I always said is an incubator for and rewards creativity and taking risk. It's been amazing to have now 70 plus conversations with individuals and learn about all their stories and have a platform to share them.
I'm grateful for this opportunity. If there's one thing that I can recommend for anyone looking to expand and push their boundaries, and it doesn't have to be exactly this, but I walked the El Camino de Santiago, a 35-day pilgrimage across northern Spain. It challenges you in many ways. And your Camino might not be walking in Spain. It might be dancing freely in your living room. It might be painting that idea that you have in your head. It might be writing that story that you have. It might be going for a walk and noticing the flowers and the smells, the things that allow you to tap into that flow, allow you to tap into that hidden energy and ability within you. Your journey and each one of your audience members' journeys is waiting for them, and that will unlock potential opportunities and the greatness inside of them.
It's funny you say that because right now, irrelevant to, and I'm sure when this comes out, we'll already know, but it is Super Bowl weekend approaching, and A.J. Brown was caught on the sidelines reading a book called Inner Excellence, which blew it up to be a #1 seller on Amazon when no one knew about this book. And it's very relevant. You know, the author of this book, I'm forgetting it off the top. I'm sorry. It's new. It's sitting on my desk right now. Anyhow, he is the great grandson to one of the last samurai. And he talks about how, you know, even his great grandfather attaching his identity to a samurai, but what that meant in terms of inner excellence. It's a phenomenal read, and it aligned perfectly to a lot of the things that you're talking about. And, you know, being a creative, what you're talking about with that Camino is creating space. Creating space. It's so important to just get attached, to re-identify and center yourself with self with a capital S.
Absolutely.
No, but you should definitely check out the book Inner Excellence. It's really, 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 really
Look forward to it.
Really, really good. So out of our philosophical conversation there, because boy, we were deep. Well, we do live in a beautiful place. How do you like to spend your time here?
I didn't know anyone when I first moved here. Mm-hmm. And one of the other resources that they have in Tampa Bay area is the long history of diversity. So I got connected to the salsa community here. I don't often share that, but I found it as a great home and a transition from moving from Barcelona here, and some cultural similarities. And the community was so warm, and it challenged me as well. As someone who, you know, spent a fair amount of time in school, we think analytically, we think, you know, in this mechanistic way often, and learning to move your feet helps you spur and break those boundaries, or to see myself more capable in that salsa community setting. And I would argue that for me, that was a big unlock and a great transition to allow me to get my feet in the sand firmly here.
Well, I love that, and we don't get to talk enough about the South Side on the show. You mentioned John with Central Cigars, which I know he's had some challenges in undertaking of transfer of ownership here recently, but he was dedicated to the South Side as well with his cigar shop. So we need to do better at highlighting the things that are happening down there, and there is great development happening, new businesses opening. The city's growing quickly, and it's in all directions. And so we can't forget that.
I also want to highlight, we are also big in the music. Doechii just won.
I don't know who this is.
Top rapper.
Okay.
The Grammy.
Okay.
From Blake High School in Tampa.
Oh, okay.
We have Rod Wave blowing up here from St. Pete. We historically are tied to music. So you asked me, what did I do when I'm... Every Sunday, when I first moved here, I was going down to Ruby's and listening to Sean Brown play. But we have a long history. Ray Charles used to play here regularly, fell in love in St. Pete, wrote a song called the St. Pete Blues, which was later changed. Jim Morrison was in here, was in the region. He was writing poetry and practicing at Beau Arts Coffee House before he went out to LA and become the greatest, sexiest rock icon ever. And Doechii is another example, and then Rod Wave, and now, Sacred Snow.
Yep.
We see, and these are from different parts of the community. So I think there's a lot of nuggets and inspiration that we can pull from all different areas.
Yeah. It's your birthday. You're in St. Pete. Where are you going to eat? Deep thought on this one.
I want to do a picnic at the beach with my love.
Okay. That's great.
I want to watch the sunset, have a nice bottle of wine, some cheese, a little snuggle, and
that is fantastic.
That's what I want to do for my
You know
birthday.
what? Everyone always has trouble because they're like, well, I know so many business owners or other restaurants, they don't know which one to name, but no one has taken advantage of the great sunsets that we have on the beach for their birthday dinner, and that, sir, is remarkable. First and great answer. But now here would be the question: which beach?
I think for conveniences, I like St. Pete Beach, but having lived in Sarasota, and I've spent some amazing times with some of best friends from living here. Shout out to my buddy Dave. Spent so many days, nights, moments on Siesta Key and sunsets. So if I had time, Siesta Key for convenience, St. Pete Beach.
Okay. I like it.
I do love the drum circle as well.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a that's tied to the jam band. It's tied to innovate. I mean, wonderful experience.
Quite a unique experience out there. I think it's on Treasure Island, right? That happens.
They had it a few times at the pier because of circumstances.
Right, of course. Yeah. So many unique communities here, and we express it. And boy, we have gone all over in terms of thought, navigating innovation, which it is. Like I said, when you get to the seed of creativity, it is abstract, because where does it really come from? Not sure. Steve, it's been a pleasure.
Ryan, absolute pleasure.
I'm thrilled. I love this conversation. For those that are still watching and listening, I always ask the guests to say what's one word they could comment below to know that they're still here. You get to pick one word.
Connection.
I love that. That's great. Where can they find you?
You can learn more about the School of Creativity at theschoolofcreativity.com. You can learn more about me, stevediasio.com, and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm active, and help us join this conversation around leveling up St. Pete, the amazing people, to build our greater selves.
I love that. We'll have all of his information in the description below. Don't forget to tell a friend, like, subscribe, do all the fun things. We are so grateful that you're watching. We couldn't do it without you and all your support. Thank you, everyone. Steve, appreciate you.
Thank you.